Hi, good afternoon. Today, 16th of April 2022. I have done a earlier video on findWHERE series regarding basics, and therefore I need to add on with some additional information involving classification and category of land use for better explanation. Let me go in. Hi, good afternoon. I am Thomasin PA2066. Today is 16th of April 2022. This is addition to topic called basics, which is with the basic of information about land and dealings in land. And this is under the findWHERE series, which I have done last year around August. Well, this edition is about classification and category of land. This one I put in bracket use. So category of land use is a part of the information that I put in under findWHERE series, 22 chapters, property investing and selling issues. Let us begin. Right, this is the overall of the 22 chapter. 21 plus 1, which is 22 chapter. I have added another 22 chapter, which is on stamp duty. Anyway, these 22 chapters, we are looking at shelter, care, invest and business, and these basics I am adding on today another extension, which is regarding basic information. Let me begin. So basic idea about land classification and category. Now we are putting a scope. At least we know what we are talking about. We are talking about National Land Court, NLC, and the local state land court. In the case of my practice is in Sarawak, so it's Sarawak Land Court Chapter 81. Other states like Penang, Malacca, or individual states, East Coast states, Kelantan, Terengganu. Please refer to your own state law, state court. But National Land Court is the one that I am referring to for this afternoon discussion. So this is the National Land Court. I purchased it around 2013. I was studying for the exam. So the Sarawak Land Court, I refer to this 1958 edition. Of course, there is no reprint for this Land Court for Sarawak one. A lot of it is in the digital format. So the part of that I am attracting your attention is there is 5 classification for Sarawak Land Court, but there is no such area of classification as we go in later for National Land Court. Also, the another book I refer to is the Saleh Buang book on Malaysian Torrent System. This one, second edition, a very good book, chapter 5. And the other book I use for this reference is IIUM book, which is Principles of Malaysian Land Law, chapter 3, chapter of 3.7 and 3.8, Principles of Malaysian Land Law. So okay, we go back to National Land Court. What is the classification of land? Under chapter 2 of the National Land Court classification and use of land, under classification, it says that the Act, the National Land Court shall classify land as follows. Land above shoreline and foreshore and seabed. Land above the shoreline shall be classified as follows: town land, village land, and country land. So this is how National Land Court classify land, as in the type of how far away from shoreline, or how it is classified as those above the sea. So those beneath the sea, there is a different classification again. But anyway, just a simple way of understanding. Classification under land court is in fact more location dependent where the land is situated. So it's considered clear here. Town means area where it's nearby to the busy central business district. Village land is actually in between. Country land means outskirts, mainly very kampong area. So here, Sarawak classification, you can see that I have written here: mixed zone, native area land, native customary right land, interior area land, and reserves. And in Sarawak, it's called town land, but instead of village land, it's called suburban land, and also country land. So this is how the land administrator or land administration in the land office used to classify the land. So sometimes in the other terminology used, it's called class of land. So the class is geographical or locational dependent, and the part of Sarawak is different because it has another different classification due to the previous laws. So later we will explore in more detail. Now, category of use I written here, category of use of land. Actually, the correct way is to write category of land use. How it should be, how it is used. So agriculture, building, or industry Later we will explore more onto these three parts. First is the classification of land, which is location dependent, and then for Sarawak, another extra which you have classification in the different native types. Then the third is the category of land use. So this in the section 52 of the National Land Court also, it says category of land use and application thereof to land alienated under this act. For the purpose of this act, there shall be three categories of land use: agriculture, building, and industry. So this part, I just get a slide from Jamaluddin Yaakob, which is from SlideShare. I share his slide here. So as you can see, when the mountainside and then going down to the seabed, so the land is classified as in town land, village land, and country land. So country land may be mountainous, very few people staying there. So in the way we understand it as a town land means nearby busy area with people, and village is people who are in kampong, and then this one is really jungle, country land. The other way is looking at this section 51, land above shoreline, under country land, village land, and town land. So this one further in the town and village, usually where human habitation, they will have a registry title because it's nearby main township. And then in the kampong area is land office title. So this one is applicable in the National Land Court. Also in the shoreline and seabed is a different thing. So now we are talking about classification as in location, whether it is above sea level, below sea level, and above sea level there will be town, village, and country. In Sarawak it's called suburban. So now we go to what is called state land. In where this is probably illustration that more of explaining what the interaction of different names calling each other among all the names in the West Malaysia setting, how in the National Land Court. So state land under the National Land Court seems, in this case, take away alienated land means land that is alienated to building. So developer alienated the land, on the land, then you are staying in the house, so that land is already alienated to you. So that is private owned land. Reserve land and reserve forest, these are primary forest, forest range for wildlife conservation. And reserve land may be for purpose of building public utility, public amenities. Mining land is one that is already designated for mining. So here it says that state land is defined as all land in the state, including so much of the riverbed and of the foreshore and seabed as is within the territory of the state or limited territory waters other than. So these are West Malaysian situation where they have this type of classification. So later on I will give you another diagram for Sarawak. Sarawak also has this concept where the whole state, if you take away land that is already mixed zone, and usually alienated land here in Sarawak will be more like mixed zone land. And then we have also the reserve land, and also other types of land that later we will see under the Sarawak Land Court. So okay, Saleh Buang has authority in land matters, in written books and a lot of key historical cases. So classification and use of land under Saleh Buang in the Malaysian torrent system, two distinctive concepts, classification and category. So as you see here, is in the concept of the location is above shoreline and foreshore or seabed. They are classified into town land, village land, and country land. So this is concept of location of a particular piece of land. So this second part is that the use, classification and use of land. Under here it says that the court says that there is three different category of land use: agriculture, building and industry. However, in the building part, during the March 25th to May 31st of 1985, the court recognized 4 categories. So agriculture, commercial, residential. So commercial and residential here under building and industry. And this is the part that is mentioned, I can find is mentioned in Saleh Buang's book. But generally, if you have a old title, the title is blank, is silent on whether it's residential or commercial. You just put there bangunan or building. So this is a common occurrence where you have an old title, which was previously not computerized, so they never write down whether it means to say building as commercial building or is it a residential building. And this can come in an issue when it's considered when you are selling or you are dealing with the property So in case that you understand also in other topics I have done, which is residential homes, you're selling residential homes which is exempted from taxation. I mean exempted from real property gains tax. So this must be residential. So if your land title says building, but there is no special condition or no condition mentioned, it is for dwelling house or for kediaman, then it can be commercial. So when it can be commercial, then it is taxable under the part that is not exempted. So this is how it is applied in the real scenario, in the real life scenario. So when you handle some of these sales of property, then you need to be careful. So if it is a land title which is no mention or silent of the property, whether it's commercial or residential, better confirm with the authority. So because the commercial land title attracts more taxes. Right, we move on. So in Sarawak, the category of land, they use the word category of land in terms of premium renewal. They put down there town land, suburban land and country land. So this one in West Malaysia, they put there village land. In Sarawak, it's called suburban land. So this in West Malaysia is called it's called classification of land. In Sarawak, it's called category of land. So anyway, classification in Sarawak Land Court is actually Section 4 is mixed zone. Section 4(2) is native area, interior area land, reserve land, native customary land, and this means from the 1st of January 1958, native customary law refers to land that has evidence of custom use or customary community use. So we are actually looking at the 5 classification here, and the last 2 you usually wouldn't call it a classification or a category. Here is native communal reserve and also government reserve under Section 6 and Section 7 of the Sarawak Land Court. We move on now with more details. Our Sarawak Land Court 5 classifications, which is Part 2 of the Land Court, Section 4 to Section 10. Power to constitute a new area of mixed zone, native or interior area land. So here it mentioned 3 classifications already. So these 3 classifications under Section 4. You have also the interesting things about, if you read further, native customary land, and also as you move on, reserve land. So actually here in Section 4, it in fact classify it under mixed zone, native or interior. This is mixed zone, native area land, interior area land. These are 3 classified types. Then you have the native customary land, which is the 4th one, and the last one is reserve land. So let us go into native customary right. So native customary land, in fact, is actually by the law on the 1st day of January 1958. Act lah. So any land that is not claimed or not being gazetted as a native customary land on the date of the 1st of January 1958 would have to fight for the case. So they have to go to court and fight for the case by giving evidence. So how to give evidence? So later we will see how to give evidence. Native communal reserve and also government reserve actually these are situations where they are proof of community living, like longhouse or whole village where they actually evidence of planting in a community. So this type of land which the government would give a reserve, so it's called native communal reserve. So this native communal reserve will become a native customary right. So it gives the right for the community to eventually claim it as a native customary land. And government reserve is more on the case that where state requires this land to be reserved for public use, so state public purpose. So it's called government reserve. And let's say we say that there is a reclassification of land in the Sarawak Land and Survey Department. They put it as section 4(1), which is mixed zone. So any land which is gazetted as a mixed zone, then it will become a mixed zone, although in the earlier time it is actually a native land or a state land or land that is not inhabited, it's empty, there is no inhabitants, there is no use of the land. So when the land is alienated, it can be alienated under section 4(1), which is a mixed zone. It can be also declared as a native area land or interior area land under section 4(2), or it can be declared any land as a native area land. So this concept is that when they have no inhabitants in a or no claim of a land which is a uninhabited land, then the state authority can put it as the native area land or interior area land. And this interior native or interior land can be later on reclassified as a mixed zone land. So this is important to understand that the different classification of land in Sarawak, the 5 different types of classification indeed is to give recognition of how these land are grouped into one so-called common language, common term to be called, so that we understand if this land can be alienated or not. So government reserve under section 7, you have government reserve land, native communal reserve, section 6, and special development area. So this is special for Sarawak, special development area, where the land and survey and state authority can designate a special area where it is given to a statutory body. So this statutory body we can hear of is Land Custody and Development Authority, Sarawak Land Development Board, or Bintulu Development Authority. So when this land is all given to this statutory body, or under the section 11(1) or section 13(E)(1) of the Land Court, then it means to say that this authority are given the right as a administrator for the land. So any transaction of the land parcels are under the special development area needs to go back to this authority for approval. So this is important. So if you come across a land under LCDA, then it has to go through the LCDA to get it transacted. So the diagram I wanted to say is here. So if you are confused, just remember state land for Sarawak here means the 5 classification: mixed zone, native area land, interior area land, and native customary land, and the reserve land. Then you have the 2 which come out here. One is government reserve. I put a heart shape because government reserve for public utility, public use. Native communal reserve is actually also similar idea, where they reserve for communal. Communal means living in a big community lah, like longhouse. So in fact, some of it are overlapping. The reason why I put it as overlapping is that if you imagine the whole state is empty, nobody in the state, then the government can classify the state land, which is actually usually with the native that started to live here, will be a native area land. And then you have the interior area land, which are usually the jungle so whereby there is still state control of this land, but then it is not called customary land. So if they find evidence of orchard evidence of graveyard or pondok where there is evidence of community living, then they might put it under native communal reserve, and then upon claiming it becomes a native customary land. Then the part where let's say the native area land or the interior area land or the native become more modern where they are very near to towns, then government upon application by alienation may actually reclassify them as become mixed zone land. So the mixed zone land will be overlapping to the native area land and interior area land. So these are all under the state authority. Of course, the reserve land it means what? Reserve land here means they are reserved for purpose of setback. For example, nearby the river, nearby the sea, or near the road. So all this because of the reserve that the government need to space out for purpose. So all these are under reserve land. Government reserves are for school, for hospital, for public utility So this is how Sarawak is classified in terms of the name. But in West Malaysia, this type of classification it probably becomes a bit different, because the native area land, interior area land, all these lands actually is Malay reserve Malay reserve land. So this restriction of interest includes all these Malay reserve land. And in the case of mining reserve or mining land, they will be under category of mining land. In fact, in Sarawak also there is mining land so in that situation it is not a native area land or interior area land, but it's under a different control. Some of this land can also overlap with forest ordinance forest ordinance, whereby it is a reserve for forest, so under reserve land, and it's actually under the forest ordinance. Right, I like to conclude. National Land Court in the basic information is that for category of land use and classification, is location dependent, where how far away it is from the seashore, and also the town land, village land, country land. This is quite standard We understand it as a location dependent. Suburban for Sarawak, then they call it alienated land, mining land, reserve land, and reserve forest. Whereas for Sarawak, it's more complicated. It added with these 5 classification. So this 5 classification is mixed zone land, native area land, interior area land, native customary land, and reserve land. In the case for the administration of the land, for our side is called town land, suburban land, and country land instead of village land. We have also the native communal reserve, whereby the government reserves certain part of the land for communal, and government reserve, which is as I said just now, for public utility and special development area so which is given to authority. So thank you very much. I am contactable at the number display. I have a few websites, findWHERE.info, Contract to You, My Real Property Online, and I also have estateagentexam.com, which is for study of the diploma in estate agency examination. Thank you for following up. Thank you.